Hello, good day, everybody. I also apologize for speaking in English. I want to first really express my deepest gratitude and admiration to the friends from Tzedek and to the organizers, because I know what unbelievable amount of courage it takes in the current political atmosphere to stand up against the genocide that is happening in Gaza and call things by their name. And before I start my intervention, just one word. Coming in here today, I saw the little welcoming committee that our Zionist friends organized, and they were handing flyers calling this assembly as promoting anti-Semitic content. And I want to say, as a Jewish person, my definition, my understanding of anti-Semitism is excluding Jews from the rules of humanity, saying that the rules of humanity do not apply to us as a collective. And what Israel is doing today in Gaza is exactly that, saying that the rules of humanity and the moral of the collective human being are not applied to us, that we are exempt somehow from obeying the basic human moral laws. I don't know of a more accurate and horrifying definition of anti-Semitism than that. Nearly half a year into the war on Gaza, with an unprecedented killing pace of civilians in the 21st century, a survey conducted just this week by one of the Israeli media outlets showed that more than half of the Jewish population in Israel still fully supports the continuation of the genocide in Gaza. The shock by the October 7th attack that struck the Israeli public with fear is just a part of the reasons for the ongoing support for this lethal revenge. Another part is related to the partial and distorted manner in which the Israeli media reflects reality to the public. The Israelis really know very little about what's the magnitude of the horror in Gaza today. But this support is also linked to the institutional and public fierce objection from the very first day of the war to any attempt to understand the October 7th attack within a context, claiming that such analysis implies legitimizing the attack. But the truth is that not only Hamas's attack, but there is not a single historic event occurs in a void, and we really must understand, even if not for anything else, but to prevent history, from prevent catastrophes from happening again, we are obligated to understand the context and to call reality by its name. About 3 years ago, B'Tselem published a comprehensive report explaining in detail why we see the Israeli regime, which controls de facto all the territory between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River, including Gaza, as one apartheid regime. And I think that this regime analysis is extremely important in order to understanding what is going on today in Gaza for several reasons. First, because the Israeli fragmentation of the Palestinian existence into various geographic and political categories, such as citizens within the Green Line, subjects in the West Bank, residents in East Jerusalem, prisoners in Ghetto Gaza, and refugees outside their homeland, is intended to crush the organic connection between the different organs of the Palestinian people and to deny its very existence. Second, because precisely now, in the light of the ongoing genocide in the Gaza Strip, it is important to debunk the lie about the end of Israeli control in Gaza after the withdrawal in 2005, and to place the current apocalypse in the context of the Israeli suppression of the entire Palestinian existence between the river and the sea. Third, because it is impossible to understand the Gaza reality without understanding the Israeli brutality in Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, or in the refugee camp of Jenin, or in the area of Masafer Yatta in the West Bank. And fourth, because thinking about the day after the war must take into account not only all the territories under Israeli control, but also the organizing logic of the regime that governs them, namely Jewish supremacy, and present an alternative to it. We don't have enough time, so I won't go into details about the unique manifestations of the apartheid regime as it applies to each of the Palestinian categories that I mentioned before. But I do want to emphasize that since the beginning of the war, all of those manifestations in each of the categories have been exacerbated in an extreme manner. In East Jerusalem, police brutality and repression and arrests have reached new heights. My own daughter, by the way, was just arrested yesterday in Jerusalem, participating in a demonstration against the war, as have the number of home demolitions, which in recent months have become alarmingly high. In the West Bank, ethnic cleansing through settler and military violence has already led, since the beginning of the war only, to the expulsion of at least 16 communities in their entirety and several more partially. Roadblocks around and within all of Palestinian cities and villages in the West Bank have made movement nearly impossible for Palestinians since the beginning of the war, and the freezing of Palestinian Authority funds has more or less paralyzed the economy of the West Bank completely. And I think a special attention should be paid to what is happening inside the Green Line against the Palestinian citizens of Israel. When Israel wants to negate the accusation of apartheid, it always uses the Palestinian citizens, saying, look, they are full equal citizens, they can vote, they can be elected. This is far from being the case. Since the beginning of the war, the Palestinian citizens have been the target of unprecedented political persecution, arrests of hundreds of citizens for expressing any sort of solidarity with Gaza on social media, suspension of hundreds of Palestinian students from universities, prevention of protests, any protest against the war, and it reached as far as arrest of members of the High Follow-Up Committee, which is the most important political body of Arab citizens, for only intending to organize a demonstration against the war in Gaza. After 6 months of brutal, ongoing genocide, starvation, the intended starvation of over 2 million people, the world is finally way too late and way too slowly, but the world is starting to wake up. This is exactly the time to clarify that Gaza is not an isolated and disconnected issue, and therefore the question of who will rule Gaza after the war, or even discussions of political solutions such as the two-state solution, are at best partial and unsatisfactory, and at worst dangerously divert attention from the necessary decolonization of the entire space. And one last sentence. This is the time to clearly state that the liberation of Gaza must be a part of the liberation of the entire land from Jewish supremacist regime that spans from the sea to the river for the benefit of all the inhabitants of this land, Palestinians and Jews alike.